Are those of the hosts, guests, and callers, and are not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other advertisers. You're listening to Transformation Talk Radio.
You know that moment when you realize you have mastered your wellness, when you've become so resilient you can conquer any hiccup life throws you. Yeah, well, me either. But I still ride unicorns. I'll teach you how to become a mindset master. You will learn how your habits and behavior affect your success in nutrition, exercise, relationships, organization, and so much more. It's your reality, and you need to do it your way. Self-care and self-love are anything but selfish. Take charge, get excited. If not now, then when? Grab your espresso and get ready to talk all things wellness. It's time for Coach, Couch, and Coffee Radio with Coach Peggy Willms right now.
But what's up with this Mercury retrograde? It's killing me. I have broken so many technology things, laptops, broken phone thingamajiggies, whatever. Battled with phone calls. I don't know. The earth is spinning backwards. All right, so today, hope you guys have your unicorn mug. You know, I always bring my mug. Yeah. And it's coffee time. So coffee time is when we get together, just chat about anything. Sometimes I have questions. Sometimes I have guests. And today I'm going to talk to you about a subject, very big subject that I love. So family wellness, history, and habits. Yes, we're going to go back to about age 5 to 15-ish. So I'm going to ask you to go back in time. I'm going to explain to you why it's really important to actually go back. I know there are a lot of experts out there that say, draw a line in the sand, get over it, step over it, get over it, move forward. But I really believe there are a lot of things, unhealthy and healthy, that we bring forward. Some are fault, some not, that really lend themselves to whether we are successful or not. So we're going to chat about that. If you get an opportunity, you don't have to have a pen or paper right now because some of you might be driving, super dangerous. So you can look back at this podcast. It's going to be uploaded to YouTube on my 3wellnesspillars.com website, and then take a pencil and paper and go through it because some of these questions will be helpful to you. I just want to let you know that it's usually about a 4-week process when I go through this with clients because I break it down on nutrition, exercise, then we look at your social environment, and then we look at your mindset. And there are questions within each of those categories. So when I break them down, it's usually about a week at a time that they go answer the questions, and then we come back because frankly, it's not just about answering the question. It's about figuring out what you want to do with it after that, those learned behaviors. It's about figuring out, okay, so you go back and you figure out that grandma was sneaking or binging perhaps on, all of a sudden the little Debbies are all gone. You know they were there yesterday. It's going back and figuring out what traits you're bringing forward or what kind of emotional eating you do based off of what you've seen. Or maybe you're one of the ones that grew up with a garden in your family and that's just what you knew. And so maybe planning your foods and your meals are a lot easier for you. Or like with exercise, for example, maybe you had a super active family. And maybe another, client that I have might come from a family of couch potatoes. So can you see how that would be really, really different when it comes to embedding exercise habits in your life? It's drastically different if your family was never active and then all of a sudden you're 40 years old and you're trying to figure out how come you're not active and it's not part of your daily life. The other part is, I don't know, if we were in a room together, I would say, show of hands, everybody. Give me a show of hands on how many of you guys had a gym teacher who just embarrassed the crap out of you. I think we all had a gym teacher, and I'm just going to go out there and say this, that often gym teachers or cheerleading coaches aren't just in the greatest shape sometimes, but boy, they treat you like crap, like you're supposed to be collegiate athletes or something when you're 12. So how many of you have had a gym teacher that barked at you or made comments at you that really affected your mindset or maybe even self-image for decades? So that could play a role in body dysmorphia and all of those things. So I want to talk to you about getting rid of some of the labels that we have. That's what I love about this topic we're going to chat about today, is because it will help you get rid of some of those labels. You will be able to say, get rid of Coach Peggy is a couch potato, and maybe look back and go, hey, some of that stuff came along with me, and just take that label off and just recognize the data and move on from this. Some of the labels that are healthy that I use I also use like the chronotypes, biorhythms. I don't know if you guys have heard of this before, but those are your sleep cycles. So if you were working with me, I would label you after you took a test as to whether you are a bear, a dolphin, a lion, or a wolf. And that's a label that works for you because it helps you with your wellness goals. We also use love languages. That's a label that helps you. Are you a fresh starter or a baby stepper? All those things that are healthy labels. So with family, wellness, history, and habits, we're talking about today, I'm going to help you try to get rid of some of those labels that aren't serving you. Yeah. Makes sense? Okay, so let's get started. Mostly, as you guys know, the nutrition pillar. So I have 3 pillars, right? I focus on nutrition and exercise, and then the third pillar is mindset. And in the mindset pillar, that's kind of the glue, holds all your habits and emotions, behaviors, organization, all of that. In the nutrition pillar, staying at your goal, your weight loss goal, your weight goal, or getting to it is 80%. So 80% of your efforts need to be focused on food. And that's huge. Like that's a big part of, I think it's 28 out of 35 meals a week, you guys, that have to be pretty darn on point for you to get a B- or a C. So that can be pretty tough. So the first lane that I go down with clients when we're looking at family wellness, history, and habits is we talk about nutrition first. Gotta go there. So the way the process works is they receive a document and they fill out the questions. I get them back ahead of time and then we go through it. The point of it is to figure out what you want to bring along with you, what was a really good, healthy habit, such as you had a garden, you prepare fresh vegetables on Sunday, maybe you hung out with your parents in the kitchen, they both love to cook, maybe they made the grocery list together, and all of those things. Those are habits, obviously, we want to bring forward. But we also take a look at those that we either need to rewire or completely get rid of. Like keeping the little Debbies hidden is probably something we want to get rid of, right? So I'm going to go through some of these questions, literal questions, throw them at you and kind of dialogue a bit back and forth about what some of the answers have been that I've received and kind of some ideas that I would give you to work through them. So let's go with number 1, nutrition. Yay. So here's the first question. Do you remember having enough food as a child, or was it hard to come by? And some of you might think, well, that's really kind of a silly question to start out with, but honestly, it's not. So it does depend on what age you are. So if you're 20, it might be a little bit different than if you're a child of the Depression era. Scarcity can create a lot of emotional, behaviors, emotional reactions to whether you have enough food or not enough food. I've seen people before that when I have them do a pantry or a refrigerator audit and say just for the week we go, let's get rid of everything that's expired. It can be 8-9 years back that they have foods that they've kept. And it's just that kind of hoarding-ish thing that they have where they don't want to run out of food. So that's a question I'd have you think about is, did you have enough food growing up or were you really worried about it? All right. So here's another one that's really important is who did the family grocery shopping? It's important it's kind of a two-part question. So think about this. Did you have any input on the grocery list? Any input on the menu? What we were Friday night, let's make homemade pizza. Did you have any input on what you were going to eat? And then who made the actual list? Or who went shopping? So lots of times you guys would probably say, oh, mom does that, right? Especially with me growing up, that was kind of a mother thing as far as, we had a garden. We froze vegetables. We weren't big on canning, but we froze vegetables. And my mom was the list maker and the grocery shopper. I mean, we went with her, but we helped with dinner a little bit. Called it supper back then because I'm from New England. Supper ends with an AH, So we had those types of habits and we baked. My family baked. So we were kind of all around the kitchen. But for many families, it's the mom's deal. So if the kids are busy and out and about and they have not learned what it's like to look in the refrigerator and see what we have, look in the freezer and figure out what it takes to thaw out a chicken for 2 days. They're just not going to have those habits to bring forward. So fast forward, I now have a client that's 45 and they are just like, don't want to cook, don't want to go to the grocery store, have no interest. No interest. They haven't even got an idea of what a real carrot tastes like. I always say real carrot, and I'm referring to the ones that aren't this big and aren't waterlogged and filled with chlorine or whatever it is to keep them preserved. So those are things I want you to think about. Did you have input on the grocery list? Did you have input on the menu? Go into the grocery store at all? So why does this matter? Well, it matters on how you organize your time. So it affects the mindset pillar, even though we're in the nutrition lane. It affects budgeting. It affects prepping and planning and being creative with spices and all of that when you have to figure out different ingredients. So it's a really big deal to work through all that. Then the fun stuff we get to talk about is what everybody talks about. Do you eat together as a family? And I wouldn't say my kids were latchkey kids because I was home and part of their, all their events as best I could. But most of the time I had a couple jobs and their dad had a couple jobs. I think at one time even we had 5 jobs between the two of us. My boys were supercross and motocross champs. And so it was very, very expensive to put a motorcycle under their butt every year, brand new motorcycles. And so we had to have a bunch of jobs. So I wouldn't say they were latchkey kids. I would say that I had to plan ahead on their foods and make sure something was there. Or when they became teenagers, guess what happened? If I didn't do that, they were out and about hitting Taco Bell and all those things that other teenagers are doing. So my question to you guys is, did you eat together as a family? Why does that matter? Well, it teaches you, did you have mindful eating? So you're sitting down, you're thinking about what you're eating, your family is around the table, you're having conversations, you're slowing down your eating, you're thinking about what you're eating. Perhaps your fork even goes down so that you're taking a deep breath and actually chewing your food. So just the process of eating as a family teaches some people how to be mindful eaters. So that could be one of the reasons why we'd chat about that. Okay, food habits. Don't you love this one? Did anyone have any specific food habits in your family, such as mom hid her treats from the kiddos? I even did that. You know those big honking boxes of chocolates, like the different flavors? My ex-mother-in-law used to get a big one of those, and she would hide it underneath the chair in the living room. So every Christmas, it would be like this big. I swear I learned that from her, because later in life, I have my box of chocolates, and I have them shoved under. You can ask my kids. If anybody ate my sweets, somebody was dying. Somebody was dying in the house. I labeled it and said, if you eat this, you die. So I was one that would hide my little foods if I didn't want anybody to have it. So did mom hide the treats? Did mom eat while cooking? That's an important trait that you might have seen and brought forward. Did you always have bedtime snacks? And then were you a family that either cut back on dairy or cut back on carbs or couldn't afford certain meats? All part of the discussion that we have to have. That all lends itself to what your traits are today. Okay, let's talk treats. If you finish your homework, you can have some ice cream. You know, some of you guys have been told that, and probably you're saying it to your kiddos now because you learned that in your past. So I'm asking you about the treats. Were you offered them for reward? Were they hidden somewhere? Were they in a certain drawer so that you knew that those treats, that was like the treat drawer? So think about that. Then the last one I'm just going to kind of throw with you about food is, did you all eat your unhealthy things together? So I'm eating my chips. I'm the mom. I'm eating my chips and I see my kiddo and I'd really like to eat the whole bag of chips. Hey, Johnny, come on over here. You want some chips? Without realizing it, that's in a way kind of sabotaging yourself because you want to continue that process that you're in, that little snack that you're having. So that, my darlings, is a trip down an example, just little taste of what we would do for the family wellness history and habits, chatting about nutrition. We get the answers of those questions. We dive back in, figure out what we want to bring forward, what we don't, how we can come up with solutions to kind of clean some of that up. Obviously, if you're 30 years old, it's going to be quite a bit easier than if you're a 60-year-old and we're trying to get 75 or 100 pounds off. Those habits have come along for a really long time. So, all right, we're going to go into the exercise lane. I'm not going to commercial today because I said, no, I'm having too much fun. Not going to have a commercial. After my 30-minute show, though, I am going to come back after for an after party. So you're going to want to hang out because I'm not going to give you every single thing in the 30 minutes. So, all right, let's go down the exercise lane. Super important. What I find with clients most of the time, they're either really good about nutrition or really good with their exercise. Rarely are they both totally got it nailed on both sides, or they're not going to call me, right? Nobody goes, hey, Coach Peggy, I'm doing awesome. How are you? They don't say, can you help me? So here we go with exercise. Were the adults in your family active? And if so, who was active and what activities were they involved in? Now, why do I ask who? Just like with nutrition, if mom or dad are both eating unhealthy or both inactive, then that's going to obviously exponentially probably give you unhealthy habits. If you have a super healthy dad and maybe a mom that just wasn't that active, then we can chat about what are those traits, what were those those types of behaviors that you'd like to mimic of either one. Okay, so that's the exercising question. Which one was active? What type of activities did you do? Then I'm going to ask you specifically, which sports, if you did any sports, which ones did you do? Why? Some of them are more competitive than others. Some are participation type sports. Some are hardcore competitive type sports. That helps me design our challenges together. If you are a super competitive person, we're going to tighten up those goals and really drive some of those deadlines to get you motivated again. So I do ask the specific kind of sports that you hung out in. The other thing with when you're active or you've been involved in sports, it's important to know if you were supported. So even if your parents weren't active, did they support you verbally? Did they attend your events? And that is very important because when we get down to the fourth kind of compartment of this worksheet, this process, it's important to know if you had a support team that built your confidence. So even if they didn't participate in sports? And if you did, I'm going to want to know what your support systems were like. Okay. Couple more questions on the exercise portion here. So injuries. I love finding out about if there are any injuries and how you dealt with them. Unfortunately, I don't want you to have injuries, but I do learn a lot based on what type of injury, because I need to know if we can do certain activities or not. That totally makes sense. But I want to know how you recovered from them. For instance, I want to know if you twisted your ankle, was your mentality, oh, hell no, this isn't putting me on the couch. It's just a twisted ankle. You know, do you have the mentality of what can I do versus what can't I do? So I'm going to dive like really deep into that. I'm going to want to know, did you abide by the physician's orders? Hey, you know, Peggy, you need to sit on your butt for 6 weeks. This is a strained Achilles, and you need to just, use your crutches with absolutely no pressure. And then if I say, kind of bragging, I was told I had to sit on the couch for 6 weeks, but, at 3 weeks, man, I was up and I was at them. And I want to know that because it helps me know if you're the type that's just going to keep pressing and pressing and trying to get an A without healing. Are you the one that's just going to drive towards the goal, and once you get there and you lose 75 pounds, are you just going to go, got there, who cares, now what? I want to know how you keep your commitments and respect, the experts that you've had to deal with. So that's where we go, part of where we go for injuries. And then I want to ask something like this. If as a teen, do you remember or even remember hearing anybody say to you that you would have to be physically active, or even that you would have to eat well as an adult to stay at a healthy weight, or to stay strong, or to sleep well, or anything like that? I want you to be able to tell me what that is. Somebody might say, heck no, we never thought about that. My generation, I don't think we ever thought about that. Today's world, I think people are really, that's drilled into kids today. So we're going to be coming up here on having to let you go to commercial in a couple more, or go to the half-hour mark of the show. And then I am coming back for an after party. You know that. So here's a couple more I want to go into. I want to go into mindset. Okay. So do you remember anyone in your immediate family talking about being on a diet? Huge. This is huge, huge, huge. Were they on a diet? Were they swallowing diet pills? Were they always juicing? Were they saying they were fat? This is all mindset stuff. So if you're watching that or hearing that, or even put in a Weight Watchers class when you were 11, I can't tell you how much time we spend peeling back that onion. That's a big deal. And I want to stress that I'm not here to blame any parents or teachers or grandparents. I'm there too. I got enough stories to tell you that what my kids have probably learned. All I'm doing is factual, data-driven stuff. What have you learned? Where did you learn it? What are we going to do about it? Okay, here's another one in mindset. Did anyone talk to themselves, about themselves, or about you or to you negatively? Like, man, girl, you should, if you lost about 20 pounds, you have a pretty face. How many of us have heard that? Oh, she's got such a pretty face. Seriously, what the hell does that mean? That drives me insane. So let me give you one more teaser, but I'm going to go down to the next category, and in the after party, I'll bounce back up. Okay. So I'm going to go all the way down to social environment for a second. How about, did anyone in your family have an issue with integrity? Fib, lie, steal. Did they keep promises? Huh? What's that have to do with anything? That has everything to do with everything when it comes to wellness. We lie to ourselves more than you can even imagine. And my show coming up on the 29th, which is next week, my guest, Monica Toole, is going to be here. She is going to talk to me about integrity and wellness. We're going to chat about that. But I want you to think, I'll give you a week to think about it. Did anyone in your family lie, steal, not keep promises, because that directly relates to your wellness. Oh, yeah. So here we go. Next week, come back. We're going to be back on the 29th, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern. Monica Toole is going to be here. We're going to talk about integrity and wellness. If you guys want to work on any of this deeper, always reach out to me at Coach Peggy at 3wellnesspillars.com. Super fun. Would love to chat with you. Just dive deep into this stuff. I'm going to come back for an after party. Yay. Can hit me up on my website. You can see that on the screen, or 3wellnesspillars.com. Just have some fun in there. Get lost. So anyways, you guys, I will be back. Talk to you soon. We'll see you next week on Coach, Couch, and Coffee Radio. Get real and keep it real. Hey, you guys, welcome back. Coach Peggy here on Coach, Couch, and Coffee Radio, Transformation Talk Radio. You are in the after party. This is where all the cool people hang out. That's you and me, right? So what we were talking about before the after party is we were talking about family wellness, history, and habits. How we go back, I work with clients to figure out all those things that we've learned, answer a bunch of questions. It usually takes several weeks. And we design and get rid of a few things and try to figure out how to move forward to have a more successful future. Because guess what? You are going to be your kid's past. And I'm working with this awesome sauce family. Has 2 boys, a teen and early 20s, and the mom and dad. And so the mom and dad are now the past, the history of these kiddos answering these questions. And when I worked with the parents, and they're answering the questions of their parents and grandparents. So, I really have 3 generations working through this process with this concept. And so I can tell you right now, it is pretty cool to be able to take, from the dad and say, hey, you learned this from your mom or your grandma. And now I'm working with your 18-year-old and he's already learning this from you. And I know you don't mean it, but we've got to clean this up, because the cool part about this, you guys that are listening and you pay attention and you really work on this and you don't damn yourself, you're changing generations. You're changing your kiddos. You're changing nieces and nephews and friends and grandchildren. I'm not joking. I'm not making this up, Okay, let's go through. We went through nutrition and exercise. You can go back and watch the podcasts, watch the video on YouTube, and be able to check out, all those questions, write them down, look at the pop-outs. But right now we're going to go into mindset, the mindset part of the family wellness, history, and habits. So before commercial, I asked you if your family talked about being on diets, diet pills, juicing, anything like that. And if they talk to them about themselves negatively or you negatively. I don't know how many of you guys have really been open and honest and chatted with friends and just said the open question. Did anybody call you fat? Did anybody call you too skinny? Did anybody judge your body? Or even the thing that blows my mind, how many kids are put in weight loss camps, weight loss programs, diets, even diet, not necessarily diet pills anymore, but pretty much speed, all of those diet powders and all that stuff today. It will blow your mind if you're really willing to be open and transparent about your own stories, the things that you can learn. So here we go. Let's talk about if anybody emotionally ate. So why was this not in the nutrition pillar when I talked about that? Well, because I put emotionally eating. So I'm not talking about if you ate food out of a garden. Okay. That's just black and white data. What I'm talking about is emotionally ate. So dad comes home from a crappy day, 16-hour day, comes racing in the house, and he's just like, I'm so stressed out. I had the worst day at work. My boss is a blah, 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 stuff I can't say on the air because we'd have to pay a lot of money. And he starts eating. He hangs out at the pantry, which I've told you guys before, most of the time, if you end up at the pantry, that's psychological hunger. Okay. If he's physically hungry, he's going to probably drive towards a chicken breast or some egg whites in the refrigerator. So he's at the pantry and he's just ready to grab crackers or chips or mac and cheese or whatever. And he's saying, I am stressed out. I had a bad day. I need some comfort food. I want to feel good. And he starts eating. So children learn behavior. What do? Start connecting the dots. So they are hearing stressed out, looking at the way he acted, now the way he's eating, and then the after effect. What's that? On the couch. Now he's quiet, no longer screaming, and he's sitting there and he seems peaceful. Well, it's because he just had his addiction filled. For those people who are food addicts, that's what just happened. They just had their little line of cocaine. That's really what it is. You've got your drug. Want it, have it, sitting there chilling. Then you're going to want some more. Hate to break it to you. But this is where I take a sip of water out of my awesome unicorn mug. So I want to ask you, did anybody emotionally eat? And even think of undereating. Anybody food restricting? Somebody not sitting at the dinner table and eating when everybody else is, or you haven't seen them eat for a long time. So we need to work through that if the answer is yes, yes, and yes on that. Goals, I mentioned this before in nutrition. It really is a mindset component, though, when you're looking at food as rewards. So if you accomplish a goal, if you behave and it's food related, or let's go shopping and then we can go to IHOP. If you can try really hard to disconnect the food from an action, it will be very helpful for you, because shopping in and of itself can be its own addiction. But now you've combined two. Let's go shopping and go to IHOP. Pretty soon your kiddo is saying, wow, every time we leave the house and we go do something together, it's stacked right on top. Got a Lego stacked right on top with we get to eat something after. All right, I'll give you one more for mindset. Did you often feel stressed or pressured to do more or do better than you did or felt you could? Huge. So this is a mindset piece. This comes along with all of the thoughts on perfectionism, needing to get an A. They get you in so much trouble with wellness. It is not funny. Most of us are perfectionists in the sense of trying to reach a wellness goal even, okay? So we try really hard to do our best. Most of us really do put our feet on the ground to try to get an A. And then some people go, screw that, and get a D. Others don't slide back to a B, C, or D unless they get injured or some other component comes in. But if you grew up with somebody that made you feel less than, or that, even an A+ wasn't enough, because now schools go A++ or 5.0, whatever. Gosh. So if you grew up in that environment and you're trying to do that with your wellness, there's no way it's going to be an easy concept for you to understand when I say, I want you to get a wellness BC grade. I want you to kind of slow it back and try to get a steady grade moving along instead of an A and then an F. It's going to be really hard for you to comprehend when you felt like you've always been lacking. Now, again, we're going to work through that and go, is that your perception or not? So, all right, let's move on here. We're going to go into social environment. So what do I call social environment? Social environment is, who do you hang with? What does a house look like? So in there, I put relationships, organization, passions can hover in there, professional goals, education goals. So a lot of stuff can go right in the environment you hang out with. So here are a couple questions. Did anyone in your immediate family struggle with relationships on you and your grandparents fight all the time? Did you have a good relationship? Did you fight with aunts and uncles, or did you have a good relationship? Were they strong? Did you have struggles with friendships? So all those relational type things, we're going to want to know how those are, because sometimes we can connect you to being accountable and motivated and buddy up with a strong friend relationship or parent relationship. Other times, if you didn't have healthy relationships and you don't now, you often won't have a healthy relationship even with yourself. So, again, we talked about integrity before and fibbing, but, integrity really does come into play when you're in an unhealthy relationship with yourself, because no matter what, you're going to try hard to say you're just going to have half a bag of Doritos and then you end up with your whole face in them. So we have to work on your relationships with yourself and other people. Did anybody bark at you all the time, or did they lift you up with positive words? Okay, did you celebrate holidays? And we talk about what are all the different types of holiday rituals and traditions, and what did you eat and who cooked them, and that's like a week's worth of work just right there. Because we want to build and set you up for success. So maybe if you have a huge, huge family day on Sundays every week after church, we want to set you up for success that Saturday's super active and your food is buttoned up, and so is Monday. I'm all about living in your real world. You know that's what I'm all about. So that's how we would want to design that, because I still want you to have your Sundays. So your social environment, I want you to have the healthiest relationships like ever. All right. Let's do a couple more. Did your immediate family, ones that you hung out with, or those who raised you, watch a lot of TV? Biggest culprit for wasted time, an opportunity to chow down the most unhealthy food, and a time suck. Time suck. So I will have people track how much time they eat, they watch TV. I will often be able to match that right up with grandparents or what their parents did or what they did as a family almost directly. Yeah, social media has increased and we have access to more screen time, but the behavior is almost completely mimicked. And that's another week's worth of fun discoveries and solutions, man. All right, let's see. I would suggest to you, go back, answer some of these questions, just at least process it. That's really what coffee time is all about, is just bringing up some conversation, chatting about it, stirring some thoughts, hearing from you that'll spark another subject to chit chat about, getting some guests on here, having a good time. So I am going to let you go for tonight. You guys come back and join me again next Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 Eastern. Monica Toole, a client of mine from the past, but a very good friend, over 20 years together. We're going to get together and talk about integrity and wellness and how important it is for you to be successful at your goals. You got to stop lying to yourself and you have to elevate those values. It just isn't going to happen. If you're getting off the treadmill at 28 minutes every time when you said you're going to do 30 and you're telling me you did almost 30, you're lying. Okay? All right. We'll talk to you next week. Keep it real. Have a good week.
Thank you for listening to Coach Couch and Coffee Radio with me, Coach Peggy Willms. Did you hear something that made you go, or have an aha moment? I live for those. If not, we will get you next time. I will be back every first and third Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific to tough love you to become smarter, stronger, braver, healthier, and happier. Duh. I will be back with a barrel of positivity, and you never know when a guest might pop in. There is no time for excuses. So don't forget to bring your coffee and an open mind as we talk all things wellness on Coach Couch and Coffee Radio with me, Coach Peggy Willms. Now go grab a ray of sunshine.